Shalom. So today we're going to look at Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1. And what we're going to talk about is serpent, right? What happened is that most of the times, especially for people who claim they don't believe in the Bible, they will look at this serpent and the woman situation as if it's some mythological folklore, right? But the same way the Bible speaks is the same way a lot of these people talk today, right? You're referring to something, but it doesn't mean in a literal way. For example, a lot of these women today will say men are dogs, but when they actually say that, they're talking to men they slept with. But consciously, they're not saying that men are, beasts with 4 feet, a tail and bark, right? So why, when it comes to the Bible, they get so mythological about it? Just because of their unbelief. And this is how destructive the unbelieving mind can be. Because you can take this situation and you see it for what it is, but then you take the same situation, put it in the Bible, and you have a whole different view. Perhaps if they were to read Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1 in a magazine or a newspaper, they would have a different outlook. But just because it is in the Bible, now everything becomes fictional. Everything becomes a fairy tale. Spirit of unbelief, right? So let's look at serpent and try to understand what is the message in the message, right? So let's go to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1. It says, "Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden?" So we're seeing here that a serpent was having a conversation with the woman. But let's first look at the word serpent from the Hebrew thought process and see what it is revealing about the characteristics of a serpent, right? So here we have the word serpent, and in Hebrew is nakash, right? So it says nakash. Now here we see the first letter, which is na, and it means, can be life, flowing or motion, fish, seed, etc. We have ka, which is like a fence or wall to separate. And then you have the sha, which is teeth, fire, consume. So what is the serpent itself revealing to us about the characteristics, right? So let us go over here and look at some characteristics of a serpent. We can see that they use their tongue to touch. We can see that they use the tongue to touch and to smell. So what is this going into? How they feel you out. So people will have a way of getting into your head, and most of the times you don't realize it. That's why it said it is subtle. It's cunning, because that's what wisdom was supposed to do. Wisdom was supposed to make you cunning in knowledge, right? So a lot of people will come to you and start even telling you their stories just to get you to tell them yours. So they gain your trust in that sense. So you feel somewhat comfortable to tell them all these things, right? And A lot of you have experienced it without realizing that that was actually what happened. Most of you encountered it maybe even in relationships, right? This person come and start telling you all these sad stories, things that they've been through, but there was other intentions that you later discovered, right? So yes, the system is a way of feeling you out, right? The serpent has a way of feeling you out, right? So just like even on the internet, a lot of things that you watch are read, and then the comments, all these things are filtered. So based on the feedback, they can see, okay, this percentage of people are on a certain level, or this percentage, everything is filtered, whether you believe it or not. So this is how they push certain things out and see how the people will react or respond. So they know where the headspace is at, right? Now, the next thing is how they attack, right? So the serpent actually wraps itself around the prey, meaning no, it cannot escape. When you're encircled by the snake, there's nothing you can do to get out of that. And then they devour you, they consume you, they destroy you. Right? Now let's look at this on an intellectual level. And this is why when you look up things like demons, you will see that these are very intellectual beings. These are very intelligent beings, right? So they wrap around your way of thinking, right? Which we're going to go into the profits of the serpent. Today we don't use the word serpent anymore, but we use the word system. So this serpent, today we call it system. And you would have read it with different eyes if you were to read, and the system said unto the woman, right? Because the system speaks to our people through the mouth of what? Their prophets. What are the mouths of the prophets of the system? Right. Teachers, pastors, priests, whatever you call them. And yes, even in the Hebrew communities, a lot of them have compromised, right? So a lot of these people, a lot of these priests, they are doing the same things that the pastors of the Christian community or the modern Western world is doing to our people. Is doing what? Making you comfortable with your oppression. So just as you have Christians waiting on Jesus Christ to come back to free them, it's the same way you have Hebrews sitting in the churches paying their tithes that they call donation, so they can feel a little bit different, and waiting for Yahweh to return, so they don't have to do anything. Just sit in the church, keep the laws, and don't try to change your condition. A lot of your priests have compromised, right? So they are the mouth, these are the false prophets that are the mouth of the system or the beast, right? So you have the pastors, the priests, you have doctors. A lot of you like to say, oh, this is my personal doctor. Yes, but I'm sure that the doctor is not saying this is my personal patient. So just because you regard his or her counselor advice what to do with your health, how to eat, and so forth, it doesn't mean that they regard you the same way. Right? So they're only doing what the system bids them to do. So if they have to push this ideology of vaccine, they're going to push all the theory that comes from the system or the serpent. And you're going to believe it because it's coming from a doctor. And he has a paper called certificate to say he's legit. So you can trust him. You should trust him. You must trust him. So the counsel of your husband or your wife is not important. Trust what the doctor says. The counsel of your husband or wife is not important. Trust what the lawyer says. The counsel of your husband or wife is not important. Trust what the teachers say. If the teacher says the moon gets her light from the sun, the moon gets her light from the sun. Don't listen to your husband. Don't listen to your wife when she says, oh no, the moon is a light itself. Listen to these false prophets. Lawyers, bankers, politicians. So some of these prophets are the teachers, the pastors, priests, doctors, liars, bankers, accountants, politicians, meteorologists, Jesuit astronomers, and so forth. All these things you deem as high career, top career. These are the false prophets of the system. And this is why he says to regard the counsel of your husband, right? Don't listen to these people. So if they should tell you something, you have to go to your husband or discuss it within the household, right? Before you can act on it. Now, as we're saying here, this serpent, it wraps around the prey and devours, consumes it, right? Now, this is, like I said earlier, this is done intelligently. They encircle you with their earthly wisdom, right? Oh, the child sets such and such way in your stomach, and in order for the child to be born, you have to do a C-section. The serpent, that's the venom through the false prophets of the nurses and doctors. What happened to back then before people had x-rays? Because once you push your hand, you're going to know if you're touching the head or wherever you're touching. So you will know what to do as the midwife. You don't need to do all these things where you go to check to see the baby. People never used to do that back then. All this is new. All these things are new. Right? You have to lay on the bed to, no, usually you stoop over something with water. Right? But we took on to their way of life. He said not to make any covenant with the trees in the garden round about. But then it was 7 nations. Today is all the people. And we know who the predominant one is. The one that pushes their philosophies, their way, their culture on us. Impose their beliefs upon us. Right? Now, the next one is the serpent uses their venom. Serpents use their venom to paralyze the prey. Right? Now, how do they inject this seed in us? It starts very early, right? At 5 years old, the child starts going to school. Now it's even worse because you have people sending their babies to school at 2 years old. They're not even potty trained. That's nasty. That's literally nasty. To send your child to school that cannot call to say, okay, I'm going to go to I want to go to the bathroom. And a lot of parents see this as an accomplishment. Oh, my child started school. Can he call to go to the bathroom? No. And that's something you're proud of. Right? So they use their venom to paralyze the prey. And we see the policies that they put out that stops us from really doing a lot of things. So one of their policy is that they will have you working what you call good jobs, but yet you cannot afford a piece of land. You cannot build or buy a house. It's enough to cover your rent because you work in the city. You don't really take you cannot really afford somewhere in the country where you can raise your cattle and all these things and live off that. So they have their people living in those areas, and us with all the student loans and so forth working in the city where your rent is going to be higher, your expense is going to be higher, the cost of living in the cities are going to be higher. So with all your degrees and all of that, the only thing that you're going to be left with really is just a big fat debt to clear. Worse if you haven't gotten a job in the field that you studied for. So you're going to be working and you're being underpaid because you're not getting paid according to the qualification you have. Now all these bills coming in, stress, not able to function properly. Now you're in auto mode. You're just going through daily. You stopped thinking a long time ago. You're just acting on impulse. So they use their way of communication, the seeds that they sow in our heads through all their religious policies, their religious institutions, their educational institutions, their political things, and their sports and entertainment. They use that to their advantage. So yes, that should even be here as well, sports and entertainment. Let me put it here. Sports and entertainment. So they paralyze us with their political policies, right? One of these is their democracy. What democracy really means is, okay, I give you my weapons and you protect me. Wait, what? Yes. Turn over your weapons to me. Turn over your military to me. Let me handle your police force. So anything happens in your country, call on me. Trust me. If anyone attacks you, I'll be here to protect you. Yeah, but what if the same people attacking me are your own people? Why would I give you my weapons, my warriors, so that you can protect me? Why would I denuclearize my program to trust your nuclear program to protect me? How do I know that same protection will not turn into destruction? But that's democracy, right? So that's a military policy they use to disarm the people, right? Blind their prey. This is very political. The scripture says, do not accept any gifts because a gift blind the mind. You won't find anyone here who has not accepted the bribe. Okay, just tell them this. Okay, let's say research say, or let's say scientists say, or science. Everything is done in the name of science. So once science approves this, it is approved. So yeah, the sugar is safe. It can be on the market. Doesn't matter what it is doing to the people. All this counterfeit food, let's say the FDA approves it. Doesn't matter what it's doing to them. That should be here as well. The FDA, scientists. And the biblical term is magicians, sorcerers, and so forth. It's the same thing, right? No. The worst part about the serpent is that some of them can be used as pet and some of them are actually kept as pet, right? What did the Bible say about pets? You have snakes that are used as pets, right? And what happens is this is when you get very friendly with these snakes. You don't know when they're going to bite you. Their poison is under their lips. And that is what they use to speak to you, communicate. All these little things that you want to hear because they're false prophets. They prophesy on behalf of the system, which is the serpent, the same serpent that encircles you, separates you from your spiritual support system, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Most High, then consume your life. You have a very big salary, but your bills are up to here, way above your salary. So by the time you get your salary, guess what? You cannot wait for the next end of month to come again. So your well-paid job means nothing to you. You're living up to here. The water is right here. You should not drown, but you should barely breathe. So your mouth is under the water and it's just right below your nose. Don't drown, but stay there. That's not living. That's the system or the serpent that we've been under for so long and cannot see. How do you find the serpent? You cut the grass. It's simple. And the tool for cutting this grass is what? The wisdom of the Most High, the sacred texts, the Holy Scriptures. Cut the grass, you see it for what it is. You see the serpent for what he is. No. As for the deception, right? Because the serpent is speaking to all of us daily. But how do you end up being deceived? You cannot be deceived by something that you don't believe in. You first have to regard it as truth, or you have to believe in it for you to be deceived by it. Like I said, the serpent is very subtle and they know exactly what they're going to do, because it's not that Adam was not under the same influence. But guess what? He did not believe in the system, just like a lot of men today. We don't believe in the system's way of life because our consciousness to reality is different. It doesn't matter how much they're flourishing. We don't take onto it. But it's more appealing to a woman. It seems very functional from the feeling standpoint. It feels very functional. And a lot of women feel the sting of it in their latter days. In the young days when you're making your money, getting all these checks and doing all the things that you want, it seems very functional. But in the latter end, when you look back at all the time you gave and what you really possess, most of the times you end up lonely. Your children are grown, they're gone. You don't have a husband, you don't really own a property that you can say, okay, now I finish work, now I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labors. You're miserable. A lot of men, they follow on that same path. But the ones who become conscious to reality, conscious to the Most High, the ones who align their way of life to their concept of the Most High, they don't fall prey to it. But they're loyal to a fault. Their wives. So this is why the system go through that channel, targeting the wives. So the wives target the husbands. A lot of things, a lot of men would say no to, but because they're being approached by their wives and they want to compromise, they want to create this balance. So this is what they do. They're okay, I'm going to do it for you. I'm not doing it for them, but I'm going to do it for you. Yes, but the end result stands the same. It weakens the home. Women were not created to withstand certain pressure or certain levels of stress. So when things start to fall apart, she's going to try to find her way out with or without you. There are only few that will be willing to go through that hell with you until you can make back your way into heaven. That's what Adam did, because he knew that it was wrong. He knew he didn't give into that belief system. But the woman took it home. So he ate all those lies. He knew that they were lies, but he ate it because it was given to him by his wife, his beloved wife. Stop allowing women to come into your home with these philosophies. Conscious women, stop allowing men to come into your home with all these philosophies. A foolish woman plucketh the house, plucketh the home. Right? It's the same for a man. If the man is not conscious enough, if the woman is not conscious enough, you are going to destroy the home. The home is going to fall apart. Stop believing in things that you know that are wrong in the name of love. Do not let your love for your spouse outweigh your love for the Most High. Like I said, if you want to see the serpent for what it is, cut the grass, and everything will be clear.